Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we also have
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
one of our greatest fans, or rather a follower, I'd rather say that, of our show, asked us to do the Lord Satanus arc, where Superman was split in two, and he was had to fight Satanus and his wife, and he goes through a long arc. This is where this issue here, Action Comics 527 is where Satanus first appeared. Lord Satanus first appeared, and then he comes back in issue 53, no, 533, and he's there for I think at least 10 or 11 issues. I think it's 43 that he's there too, and it's a whole arc of Superman being split and having some struggles with his powers, but you find some interesting ways to win and survive. It's spread out over a long period of issues, and of course, how Superman gets out of the predicament. All written by Marv Wolfman. The art is also by Curt Swan in the beginning, and then later on it's going to run into Gil Kane. It was Gil Kane that's thinking his own stuff. Cal, any initial things to say about this?
Okay, so for anybody coming in, this is a Bronze Age story, not a modern age story or a Copper Age story, if you will. So we don't want to confuse Lord Satanus with Lord Satanus, as there was
Okay.
another character of a very similar name, Satanus, who was brought in circa 1992 with
Mhm.
the sometime after the reboot, and there was also a story arc involving him, and he had a sister who was I believe her name was Blaze, and there was another storyline going on. So if you come into this and you're like, I don't remember the story going this way, it might be because you're doing the 1992 story, the modern age story, as opposed to the Bronze Age story. But everything else, yeah, everything else checks out.
So we are introduced to Lord Satanus in this issue. We of course realize, since it's at Stonehenge and sorcery, that Superman has, well, at this point Superman was possibly the only person who was had a weakness to magic, whereas in post crisis, Byrne liked to say everybody has a weakness to magic. But we'll say as the story progresses, Marv Wolfman finds interesting ways for Superman to figure his way around the magic, which he does in this issue also. So that's
Yeah,
where you're
I,
supposed to handle
I,
it. You're not supposed to have him trapped by and the only person who gets trapped by magic is Superman and nobody else.
magic is such. I mean, magic is worse than kryptonite, and there was plenty of kryptonite. And there was so much kryptonite in the Bronze Age too. Like literally, you could go to the store. You're like, let me get a quart of water, and oh, let me get some kryptonite. Just in case. Just in case Superman shows up and I got to do something. It was pretty plentiful. It was pretty. Even after they got rid of it and he was immune to it for a while, it was still pretty plentiful. But magic is worse because magic is almost like Harry Potter could slap Superman around with his broom because it's a magical broom. That's where they want to go with it. It's very inconsistent, and good writers seem to understand that magic has some pretty tight limits, especially if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, where magic is like, okay, if I conjure a magic sword, it's a sword. Okay, it's just a sword. That's all that it is. It doesn't like get to cut through a building because I conjured a magic sword. Then it has to be, well, what enchantments does the sword have? Same thing like Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Without the enchantments, Mjolnir is just a really strong hammer. It's a 15-pound hammer without the enchantment. So it's like, okay, the sword is now enchanted to do what? Well, the sword can cut through anything. Okay, the sword can cut through anything. That means it should be able to cut through Superman right in half if I go through it, right? No, because like with all things, magic isn't 100% foolproof. And if you play Dungeons and Dragons, well, as I was a very big fan of, you get a saving throw. So that means like higher level characters or what have you, maybe the sword would miss, or maybe, there was something about this character where the magic wasn't going to be 100% effective. So those are things that went into it. Because if not, when we were playing D&D, as long as you had magic, you could just trump over everybody, just rip through them.
Mm.
But anybody, if you've even read like Conan stories, where Conan would fight against these magic users and such, and Conan doesn't have super strength or anything, but Conan's willpower was enough that like a lot of times he would just push through the spell because he really wanted to kill the dude. That's pretty much all it was.
Mm.
So I'm always very skeptical of how they decide to use it. And usually it's like, oh, man, how can I achieve this story with Superman? He said, oh, I know, I'll use magic. And then you got stories where he's being cut to pieces by teeth, just some dumb stuff at the end of the day. Or he's being bit by a vampire. How's he being bit by a vampire when Luke Cage, when vampire tried to bite Luke Cage and his teeth broke, but he's biting Superman? Makes no sense. But that being said, let's get into it and see what magical stuff we got into here.
Well, in this issue, let's see. We get to see, well, it's a funny setup, this portion, but we lead into this female character who needs Superman's help, but it's going to lead him to something in a kind of strange way. But it's like
Syrene, his wife.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically the hook of this. Is the wife is this? She has some own. She seems like she's the victim. But at the same time, she might her things for Superman might be a little more in her own interest than she said. And the Jimmy and what's the name scene, I don't know that there's a line where he talks about where Jimmy says that Clark thinks TV dinner's a gourmet, and it's like that's a real character. Like he's playing it all for comedy, but it's Superman gets captured and he gets taken away to, I think it's the future. They go into the future, this future where magic rules and Satanis. I want to say this design, when I first saw it, and I saw this years after this book came out, I was like, what is, like, because George Perez had a character called Gladiator that he was going to put out for Image, but then it turned into Crimson Plague. But he had a drawing of it and had that same face, similar kind of not the armor is different, but the face, the cape, and that was all the same. So I always felt this character was a Perez design that he kind of took back since DC wasn't really doing too much with it. And he was like, I think I can do something with this character. He had a sword too, but Satanus is ruling the what's the name? They say he's all terrible and whatnot. And this is one of the bits that you were pointing out, like, even though they got magic, Superman can still do stuff with his powers that kind of affect can counteract this stuff, which is just fun. You can't, you can keep him trapped, but you got to have him do some fun stuff in here. Right? So
don't tell that to the writers today. Like, Superman's weakness is magic. Because the whole idea is you could wrap him up in the magic bands, but Superman's power set is such that you would have to come up with a spell for everything. You would literally have to come up with a spell for everything in order to stop him, because the guy has a lot of stuff going for him. So, I understand there's a cool factor to say, oh, wow, comes over here, wraps him up in magic bands and floats off with them. Superman doesn't look like he can do too much. And, but then, of course, if you're a reader of Superman, after a while, you realize, well, how long is that going to last? How long can you really keep Superman chained up? That's just not going to be there forever.
So we have it, and Superman is felded by this character. And so we're getting to see how powerful it is. This is just the introduction to Lord Satanus, and we also get the dynamic that they're trying to get this thing from that Merlin had. And at the same time, while they're going through this, Lois gets yanked up, and she becomes, which they try to get the supporting characters into the book. So she's in there. And Superman has, he has one of his friends, so it makes the stakes even higher. Right. So but this is mainly the intro. We're not going to say, because there's a ton of stuff to cover here. But basically, these two are at odds, and they make it out of it. And so there's another interesting part here too, where Superman gets encased in fire, and at the same time he finds a way to kind of handle this. This is before he goes to the major story, but it's just really the intro to Satanus and seeing some of the stuff that he can do. Lois kind of, not just being the victim, ready looking angry while she's captured, and Superman gets the opportunity, and he's able to save Lois before it happened, but being felded again, just showing you how powerful this character can be. They're really looking at him as being a major villain for Superman, right? And let's skip along, because this is just the intro one. We're going to get to what he really wanted us to kind of talk about, which was the story where let's see, we get to that. No, that's not it. That's him versus the Hive. So the first issue of this major arc, after that one, you see it with Cal's. What did we talk about? It's going to be split in two. Lord Satanus and Syrene are going to fight for Superman's power, and look what happens, right? So this is the first part where we get
this is a pretty long storyline.
Yeah.
It's pretty long.
So,
but
sorry.
The premise was that there's some artifact from Merlin or other.
Yep,
but
exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
The only way to get it is you got to possess an invulnerable body. So, of course, invulnerable body, well, Superman. So both of them, both Satanis and Syrene, are after Superman for that particular purpose. And then, of course, in order to try to keep, in order to try to like keep him away. So, okay, we're going to split them. We're going to split them. So nobody gets the full invulnerability. And then not only that, but he's sent to both of them are sent to two different time periods. So one, I believe, is like in, if I remember correctly, I don't know if he was in like Camelot or something along that, and then the other guy was still in modern times.
Yep.
I don't remember exactly, but that was the basic premise. And then, I mean, you did have, well, at this point, I do got to throw this in for those of you guys who like this type of stuff. It's like, yeah, that was a great story. You remember that story? It was good. Yeah, why was it good? Because Superman was weaker in that story. It was like so good. Are you the same guy who tunes in and says, hey, remember that Batman episode where the Joker got away and he killed everybody and he totally made an ass out of Batman? Yeah, that story was great. Yeah.
Stop
that
it.
was fresh.
Stop
that was
it.
fresh, right?
Stop you.
Right? Yeah,
no.
Come on, man. Come on.
Right.
No, these cats like, oh, no, we want, the best Superman stories, and then this dude is depowered. Like, come on. No, I'm just giving this guy, I'm giving him a little bit of hard time because I hear this so often. I hear this so often from people who supposedly are Superman readers. And I'm like, look, all the top 10 stories are when this guy is like uber powerful, all-star Superman, okay? Death of Superman at the end of the day. When this guy is like literally at the height of his powers, that's when we usually, Kingdom Come, that's when we usually have like these great stories. And for some reason, the notion, not saying, definitely not saying the guy who gave us the idea for this, you're cool. You are definitely cool with me. But the two you other cats out there, yeah, I'm like, what is the deal? How can you not? This Superman, and the only time you can enjoy him is when he's at his half strength. You need him to be like Thor with Odin or something. No, you come into vibe for how clever he can be with the usage of his powers in order to get the job done. Now, this I enjoy because I never looked at him as depowered. It was just like he had to be even more clever with the powers that he had. So that was that. That was number one. And then two, you had some really nice art as this went along. Because right here, this cover, this is not Curt Swan. This is, you guessed it, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
No, this is Lopez. This is Ross Andrew. This is Ross Andrew.
No, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm on my phone. It was too small. Yeah, this is Ross Andrew. Ross Andrew. Yeah. This is Ross Andrew, and he's aping Jose Luis Garcia. But you're gonna have some really nice. You'll have some really nice covers. Okay, where I mean, they used to let other people do covers, and Curt Swan would do the interiors. But as we get further along, you're also going to get some really nice cover art and interiors from the one and the only, one of my personal favorites on Superman, Gil Kane. Gil Kane, yeah, Kane, the Wrath of Kane.
Man, that was good. I should have done that. I'm such a big Kane fan. But yeah, definitely, this cover kind of gives you. This cover gives you the idea of what happens if they get split. One is clearly trapped. Since we know that now we know they're going to be split from that cover, we can move along to the next part because, well, one of the harder parts for me is, we get this dynamic issue where Superman, this is, now, one of the things I'm going to have to disagree at this point, only in the sense of you have Superman who's depowered, and I love that he's still going into the action. And this is one of the issues where the Omega Men is in there. You have to remember, at this period, even though Superman wasn't hot, the Omega Men were like red hot. This was a key issue for a long time. The Titans with the Omega Men, the Green Lantern, who didn't have no heat on him, was hot with the Omega Men. The Omega Men were hot in here, and we got Joe Staten and doing the art on this one. And he said Superman struggled with the, with the daily planet globe, and but he's still that. Well, important part for me is him still doing things, trying to find ways to use his power and being helpful, and going into the danger, not being like can't do nothing. I mean, with with the Titans, he can't. They don't want Superman to come in and be with the Titans the entire time. So he's like saying, I can't just fly all y'all out there, but you can take the, the Omega Men with you, and you can do X, Y, Z. Otherwise,
Yeah, and then
I'll be there with you.
he freezes everything. Says like, you can take the super ice slide at me. Yay!
But we get the Omega Men by Joe Staton, drawn by Joe Staton. They're hot at this point, and they get into this big fight here. But at the same time, Superman is seeing people in trouble, and he's still helping out. And I think to this is what I like to say. And he's still a hero. It doesn't matter if he had no power; he would still go in there and fight the good fight. And this one, he gets injured and he needs to be helped. But I think that's the testament of him being what a great hero he is. That even though he's going through this stuff, he actually still out there trying to fight the good fight as best as he can. So this one is a fun one drawn by Joe Staton. But it has a crazy point towards the end where Superman is in the hospital, they're helping him out, and then he gets stolen immediately after that too. So there's still some wacky stuff in there, but it's still like fun stuff that's going on here. And as we go along, they got this story where they're taking him away and they're bidding to kill him. The second part with the Omega Men, and this is.
Oh wow, they must have loved this cover. Look how beat up Superman is. He's all chained up. Look like he's gonna kill him. Awesome.
You're terrible.
These guys, this type of cover for collectors, this would be a cover to look out for, as there are guys who collect bondage art covers. Usually it's of a girl, of course.
Wow.
All chained up and so on and so forth. But this does count as a bondage cover. And if you're a collector of bondage covers, this one is one that you were probably not aware of. So go get it.
As who's it? Johnny Custon say, I did not know that. So we go on more of the action where Superman is fighting these dudes. Who drew this one? This one is with Joe Staton again. So 2 parts with Joe Staton. And
he's a cover artist as well?
Oh, Buckler did the cover for this one.
Oh, Rich Buckler. Okay.
Oh, but going back to the other one, this one is the one before this was the first by Gil Kane, but it's inked by classic inker Giacoa. This is a Kane cover, but at the same time, it's like it's not John Romita, but it's as close as what we used to see. What's that thing? The Spider-Man books. We'll get to see the classic Gil Kane coming up, but
I can't remember if Kane did any Superboy work, because right there, that image, he looks more Superboy than Superman. But yeah, proceed with what we need.
So we have the Superman split. We have Syrene with the whatever the thing from Merlin. It's got Superman trapped in the past, and then this part where I have to get upset. I was not a fan of Jackhammer, but they did do the next story has a good moment where Superman is struggling with Jackhammer, and usually in like a Marvel style thing, the people say he's a loser. This one, the second part, because Superman loses to Jackhammer in this one, and in the second part he fights him again, even though Jackhammer is stronger than him. Or the hits are stronger than him. The people talk him, just get involved, and Superman, finds the strength and he takes him out. So we never see Jackhammer again, but that's
rightfully so, because Jackhammer that's a one-shot villain at the end of the day. We all know that. No one's talking about that. Hey, but I do have to admit that's a nice design for an outfit. The powers are kind of whack against somebody like Superman, but they only work because, of course, he's at a half strength with half of his powers. But so I thought the costume design was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got Buckler doing another. This is one where the people kind of come in there, like this after the fight, where he walks in and Jimmy helps. So he's kind of beat up, but hey, you can use some makeup and go back, and it works out. He's able to go back to the planet. And one thing to bring up here is that at this point, like, it's clear that I think Wolfman is like not too keen on Lois. He's kind of moving more towards Lana.
Lana,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's like you can see like they're gonna be some confrontation. We'll get into more of that when it gets to that stuff. That gets to more of the Gil Kane stuff. But we're gonna see you see the dynamics where he's kind of walking away and that sort of thing. Because it's been obviously she has a romance going on with Superman, but at the same time the Clark stuff she's really separated with him at this point. So it gets into the jackhammer stuff. So we're gonna move past that because ultimately I've told you what's gonna happen in it. And then we get this is the Superman that's trapped, and Keith Giffen did the cover, but we get our first Gil Kane issue. Now, I do kind of wish it was inked by someone else in the kind of the vein of John Romita, but it's still nice Gil Kane art. I know it's different for you, but at the same time, like I think who's that guy? Mike Carlin said he kind of had these old pens that he used to ink with, even though he had a line that's like, I wish we could get to someone with like a little cleaner line and someone could bring out the kind of performance and the acting, but the visuals are still amazing. It's still Gil Kane. He's still like one of the best, but it's just the finishing that always kind of had issue during this period. But he was old enough, like let him do whatever he wants. I can do my critique, but it's still Gil
I,
Kane.
I loved every minute, every line of it. Yeah, Kane.
And then
For a lot of people, no, because I at the time I wasn't very big on Curt Swan's art. It would take me
Mhm.
years later. It would take me years later after the reboot, and I would revisit, and then I was like, wait a minute, Curt Swan was a much better artist than I gave him credit for. And then, of course, as I matured, Curt Swan's art became even better. That old chestnut. Well, like, hey, like when you find out how smart your parents are as you get older, it's like, hey, you guys are pretty smart. Why were you so dumb when I was a kid?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. But then I looked and you realize that Curt Swan had been on the book for over 2 decades. He drew in several different styles. He was a master artist. And a lot of times he humbled himself in terms of his art to draw the DC house style that they wanted him to do. But he was someone who came after Wayne Boring, so he could draw the Silver Age type with the barrel chest. And then as photorealistic stuff came in, he could draw a more photorealistic Superman akin to what Neil Adams brought in, and you name it. He could. There's this great panel he drew where it's an off the panel, almost like a Kirby-esque thing, where Superman literally leaps from one panel to another on the page.
Hmm.
Some so surrealist stuff at the end of the day. Like he had a lot of great capabilities, but he was the go-to guy, and I don't think that's ever going to happen again. He was the go-to guy for 20 years.
Yeah.
With all respect to Schuster, who is, well, you can't do anything for that. Schuster's, there when the character is created. But, greatest of all time, I'm always going to give the Curt Swan. He proved that by his staying power on the character. And he was a perfect steward for over 20 years for the character. But at that time, I was like, yeah, loved everything. Kane was just, for me, explosive. Everything he did with Superman just said action, even down to his facial expressions. Loved every bit of Kane's art. Still, even now, when I was probably one of the few guys who loved all of the Marvel stuff that Kane did, even though mostly of it was just covers. He just did a lot of covers with John Romita Sr., or at least he did more covers than I think total art pages, because he was doing like covers every month here and there. They were pretty good, a very good team too between them. But I think John Romita was probably happy. He was like, "Yes, I'm tired of doing these. Don't want to do these full issues. You tricked me. You got me here on Daredevil, then you put me over here on Spider-Man. People love this stuff. I'm trying to take it light." So John Romita, him and John Romita worked out very well together in terms of what when they were working in tandem on covers. And I just thought, and also some of the storylines that we got as well that were going on with Action Comics and Gil Kane being on this. I just loved I loved every bit of it. Still do to this day.
For me, I think especially the faces, you can't really gain the like some things where there's like you go through it. There's some great stuff. like there the face is pretty nice there, but some of on the smaller pictures it's kind of hard to get the acting out of it. So that's one of the things where I would think having not to change Superman's face, but just get a little more performance into that. So, but that's a part of the acting part. But as you said, the action part is just like it's just nuts here. So it takes the storyline that's been going on, and it adds a little more depth and drama to it. That kind of heavy stuff that Gil Kane would do, and we get all this magical type stuff. And the layouts are always fun, and he's still putting together all this great stuff. So we get another showdown, but we have this Superman has just basically been captured all this time. This is going to lead to a major event in this battle between these two that's going to cause struggles for Clark Kent in his regular life, where you have this very dramatic moment where something's going on in that fight on the other world, and it affects Clark Kent here, and he just falls out. And this one, if you haven't read any of the other issues of this issue on 539, this one really gives it to you story-wise, because at the same time Clark Kent falls out, they got a doctor in there, and they find out Clark Kent is dead. He's died here in this issue. And
again? I mean, terrible.
So they say it's over.
It's terrible.
The power filtered to Superman's body has killed him, and this is going to exactly what Cal was talking about for the two of them to try to use Superman's body after this point, right? So this is the whole thing that they have to go through to use Superman's body. But the fight is going on. We see Lord Satanus merge with them. So this is what exactly, thank you for giving that explanation, and so we can get it clear. So we have this wacky combination of it, but the drama is here. We worried about Clark Kent on the other side, and will it all come together before that? But at the same time, adding almost a Marvel type of drama, they got to have an autopsy. They don't know what happened to Clark Kent. And with no powers, they can cut into him. Like, who knows what'll be left of him if they're able to put it back together. They don't even know what's going on the other side. So the drama at this point is just like, as you can see, from where we started to when Kane got on there, it just shot through the roof. And
that's right. Do I got to say it again? Yeah, Kane.
I can't with you. So we're coming to around. You know what? This one is running. We're getting through it. I think we got 4 more issues, but we have we sort of struggled. Sorry,
we're getting through it because I'm controlling myself.
So we get this thing with split between Lord Satanis and Syrene, and Superman stuck in the middle. And now this the battle. This is a classic battle between these two, the married couple. What a story about a marriage where these two are just going at it. And he's got the vulnerability and says nothing can stop him. We'll have to see about that. She still don't believe it. She should be. Like, this is what they've been trying to do. But she's got some things up her sleeve. So where she went from someone who needed help, you can see that she's like, she
doesn't need help.
So at the same time, they're about to cut him for their deepest cut. And look who wakes up. Clark Kent. And while he's getting the autopsy with his glasses on. I want to point that up. That is as DC as you get.
You can't take those glasses off. Somebody make you mention. Like, hey, wait a second. This isn't Clark Kent.
This is, and the people usually will be gone by the time they're doing it, but he's there. They said, what's the name? He's able to stop. He's not dead. And they're like, this is a good motion, even though it's not as clear because the line work is all pretty much similar, but the emotion here, Clark Kent waking up and then falling out again. But they're trying to stop him, and he's like, I'm out. No tests, because we can't have them finding out he's Clark Kent is Superman anyway, so he's got to get out of there.
Yeah. Now remember, all the kids are like, why? It would have just opened up. They would just sew him back up anyway. And then when he becomes Superman, he's going to heal. He's not human, kids. He's not human. They're going to cut him up and realize, hey, this is all out of whack. These internal organs aren't where they're supposed to be. He's got some stuff in here that a human being doesn't have. Wait a second. This is Superman. Well, of course, they won't go that far, but they'll realize there's a lot more to Clark Kent than meets the eye. Physically, cosmetically, he looks like a human being. But his internal, all that other type of stuff, that's Kryptonian. That's Kryptonian. That's always been established. So when the kiddies were like, hey, we don't understand. Why is Clark like, nope, no, I got to get out of here.
So then the other crazy thing had their Marvel moment. He says, for anyone that's sitting around there complaining and saying, oh, they should have saw his costume. And he says, obviously they didn't find my costume after I super compressed it into an ant-sized bundle. Like, this like, just in case for that a-hole fan that says, what happened to it? Actually, where he usually has his costume underneath this thing. They should have found that. They got that thing here. But at the same time, this is the moment where Lana, and when she was introduced, she was kind of very similar to what's the name, to Lois, where her time was spent trying to figure out who if that Superboy was Clark Kent was Superboy. There's a point where it turns where she's going through all this stuff, and he turns to Lana first. Lana, can you get my clothes? And he's not doesn't understand. And this is gonna start the relationship, even though everyone's in the room, all of his supporting cast is there, Lois is there too. But we see the two of them kind of together, even though Lois is there too, and they get coffee. Let Clark rest, even though the doctors are saying, this is the best part, the doctors saying they call up and they want him back. And he's like, they always say that, don't they? It's the best. So this, when I checked this out a while ago, it was like, but it was like getting to this part, I forgot how the kind of the energy just kind of really picks up when what's the name goes on there, and this sort of the human stuff gets kind of fun too, right? But then we have throw back the same. This is the thing Lois would do all the time. Outside of Lois asking to marry Superman, is asking Clark Kent, "Are you Superman?" And he's like, "No, I'm not." He's like, I don't know what I am anymore. So I'm not the Superman I've always been. And then she goes. It's like, Ma, come on. After all this time, you're still gonna keep asking. But I like the drama here. I like the body language. You can really see it in this portion of how where she has a moment of thought. I think Kane kind of really pulled this off. It's not that clean, but it's still fun. It's still kind of fun here, right? And we got back to the fight of the ages.
Hold on. Don't want to let that go for a second.
Well, what's up?
No, the whole thing with Lois, and asking if Clark is Superman. This is, I get, for a lot of cats, they're probably like so annoyed with it at this point. Like, look, this dude almost got cut open into, and you're worried about if he's Superman or not, so it can come across very brusque. But it's a long-standing tradition that Lois Lane has been trying to find out if Clark Kent is Superman. Two, there's a previous story. Where Clark is trying, their relationship gets to a point, and Clark, you know what? Now I'm not sure if it happens after or before this, but because at some point Clark and Lana, officially start dating. And unfortunately, that doesn't get fully realized in the storyline, because then we get Crisis and everything just pretty much comes to a halt. But in the story, Lois is asking again. She's like, look, I want to be with you, okay, but I need to ask you, and you guys, can you tell me, the way she phrases the question is, can you tell me if you're Superman? And Clark is like, no, or he won't answer it. He won't answer. That pretty much deads the whole thing. But that leaves room for Lana to come in. So this right over here, I believe, is going to play into that later. And Lois has just been on like a 25-year, just like a 25-year trek of trying to prove this dude is Superman. It's just relentless. So it doesn't stop here either. But Lois is not concerned. You almost died on the operating table. No big deal. Are you Superman?
Yeah,
that's the important thing.
It's like, seemingly I'm that. Are you like so? But we're going back to high action between these two, where we got the big fight, the energy, almost doing his own, like similar to like a Steve Ditko type of thing, but even bigger Kirby type action and like the Kane. Well, I can't compare Kane to Kane was well Kane. If you know who's it, with Burn Hogarth, that artist who used to do Tarzan.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of comic artists think that that guy was pretty terrible as far as what he was doing. Gil Kane was a huge fan of his, and all of Gil's peers were like, Gil, you're like a million times better. Your anatomy is a million times better than Bird Hawk, like that stuff. Like, like, why do you still like, no, I like this stuff, but at the same time, the talent of Gil, to, outshine what his person he was a big fan is also in there too. Even though, I think the fan, over time, because I think who's it, Wally Wood, who had brought that, it said something negative about that person, but Gil Kane, being the talent that he is, and from the artists that people who would know art have issue with the person he's a fan of, he's transcended that and got even better anatomy. The thing is, a lot of comic book guys learned anatomy from Gil Kane because he showed you where all the muscles are in the right places. So I just want to bring up that point to say that. But we see at the same time, so Syrene is just doing her thing, right? So she is not playing around. She is not playing around. She's going through doing her thing in this fight. And she, at the same time, it seems like it's going to be her end of 10. So at the same time, he has to call Superman. So, and this is where it's not going to be over that soon. But at the same time, we see this, and Clark Kent is back in the office again. He's not playing around. He wakes up from sleep and he's back at the office, right? So, and Superman's on the go again. Look at him. This is some fun stuff here, right here. So he goes into
I believe the operative word is action. Non-stop action.
Right. So.
I mean, think about it. Since we, started with this, has there been a slow moment? Everything has been action. Even with Clark unconscious, there's still the action of, look, is this guy going to get cut open? Oh no, he's up. Okay, and then we leave from there. He's in the apartment. He's got the people there. Uh-oh, Lois is still questioning him. Okay, good. Got to get rid of them. All right, great. Back into the suit. Back into it. Action. Okay, so this was another reason why this particular storyline really resonated with me. It was just a non-stop. It was a non-stop story. It was just a lot of drive. I guess thrill a minute may sound cliche, but that's what it was. Thrill a minute.
Well, Serena's like got the other Superman captured, about to eat him, but still he's able to fight and get out of it. It explodes, and the battle rages on, and he finally gets the upper edge on her and takes her out. But now he's got what he wanted. He's Superman. He's Superman, but the real Superman, because it's going to be a fight to the finish. Will he make it out? We don't know.
I have a sneaky suspicion.
But I think if you're a betting man, you might lose that bet. And we get to this magical cover here. It's an amazing cover. And, we saw Superman split, but we saw Satanus as the other Superman. So we got a later point in the drama, and hopefully both of these guys will make it out, right? So then I think this is similar to one of the older shot that Gil had done, but when you've been around this long, it doesn't matter if you use your shots. It's your own shots that you're using. It's fine to do, right? So Superman's not playing around with Satanus. He wants his other self. You're not gonna stop me from having it, right? And
yeah, that's an issue of Green Lantern right there. I don't remember
okay.
the issue, but that's an issue, right? Yeah, that's an issue of Green Lantern. That might be like within the first 10, 20 issues. Might be one of the covers too, but that's an issue of Green Lantern.
All right, so the battle's going on there. Now, he's been like very weak in some of the other things, but I guess since he's fighting himself and they all have the same split of power, even though Satanus has the magic, Superman's
Well,
like putting the beats
that's
on
the
him.
that's the big deal right over here, because while Superman could definitely take on half of himself without any issue, he's taking on Satanus, who is not only in Superman's body, but has his full magical complement. So this will not be easy for the Man of Tomorrow.
All right, so and Satanus, of course, has his get back, so he's not playing around with Superman either. But Superman is like, oh, he vision. I'm using my freeze breath, and the comic pros will say, the, he's like the cold. The cold doesn't work against the heat that way, but it works that way in comic books. The laws of thermodynamics. I know pros. They look at Iceman and they say you can't do that. You can't. There's no way. No, in comics you can do it.
And by the way, the pros, you guys are wrong. You guys are wrong. Why? Because the whole idea was that they kept insisting, and this is something where, again, he's not human. You guys, he's not human. Remember, human beings take in oxygen, but we exhale carbon dioxide. Okay? Kryptonians can take in oxygen and exhale whatever. They can exhale nitrogen, which is easily enough able to become freeze breath. So they're like going by, oh no, this would never work. He's not human. And I always scratch my head, like, how could you guys not get through this one? Well, the laws of thermodynamics. He's not human, he's an alien. So your laws of thermodynamics that you're talking about don't matter because he's not necessarily expelling carbon dioxide. That's it. Not very hard. I should be writing this stuff. One day I will be writing this stuff.
Well, the thing is, and that's the thing where instead of like same with like Iceman, instead of looking at it, just dealing with the way Kirby dealt with it, it's just saying he basically can do the stuff that Human Torch and what Spider-Man does with its webs when he can make stuff and all that sort of thing. And the same instance with Superman, where you have the power is like you don't want to. Some things you don't want to always lose just for something how it works, because the idea, as long as he doesn't have what the shooter thing is saying, you can have a man who can fly, but you can't also have that same man have magic shoes. Like you don't make it too ridiculous, but the cold breast is not ridiculous to the fans who don't understand that sort of thing. The logic of all this stuff isn't grounded, so like don't worry yourself.
What is it? They thought freeze breath was, when they did the reboot, that was one of the powers they took away, and it was gone for like a good 15 years where he never did freeze breath because they're like, that's one of his more silly powers. And I'm just like, you guys are ridiculous. So this is a guy who can fly and shoot heat out of his eyes, and that's cool. But the freeze breath, that's the ridiculous one. Why? It's just like, no, so that was just dumb. A lot of, and I disagree with the reboot overall, but you look at the stuff that he can actually do with it, and this isn't like, well, okay, I understand Iceman. Iceman looks fake as hell. That's just terrible. No, I'm joking. Bobby Drake doing all that stuff with the ice is cool. Why would you want to stop that?
Well,
Bobby Drake coming over here and creating a baseball bat and knocking ice, ice baseballs into people's heads, or making that ice slide like we used to watch on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It was cool. They even gave us that one episode when Firestar went back and melted everything, so there was no ice, and that's all you needed. You're like, where does the ice go? Okay, great. Firestar takes care of it. Back to the action. It's not supposed to be an impediment to having some fun with the story.
Well, one of the things, let's just keep going. At this point, Lana's, because I think she was away in Europe or something like that. She's back, obviously, with the Superman thing. So just to give you some context, Lois, they're trying to find Clark, and Lois is like, "Hey, what's going on between you? Give me the scoop." And then we had this moment where she kind of chastised Lois for getting involved in the two of them and what their friendship is or isn't. And she's like, "Hey, I'm just asking questions." So it's kind of putting Lois in their place where it's like she left. She's cleared the playing field for her and Superman, and it don't matter what she's gonna do with Clark, if it's friend or not, And then she also adds another thing where she says she stopped chasing Beefcake when Vartox left, and it's just like a little overboard, but it's her kind of coming into her own and not trying to be in Marv Wolfman. I don't know if it was needed, but this is building up Lana to kind of not just be secondary to Lois and kind of doing her own thing, right? And then Jimmy kind of gives it to Lois, saying, "Hey, you kind of started all this stuff here, right?" So at the same time, we go back to the battle. And he seems like he got Superman caught. But then next thing you know, something is happening. Something is stopping him from doing everything he was planning to do to mess up Superman. Right? And things are going left. Satanus had to fight something that he was totally not prepared to fight. Right? And at the same time, Superman is he gets free from what he's in there. He's able to go back and to deal with what's the name is going through his own struggles. Superman doesn't know what's going on at this period, right? And he said he can't. Superman has actually been resisting, right? So the other one gets free. So that's another great point where the thing that was going on was that the Superman within him was actually fighting against Satanus inside of him. So now we got two Supermen fighting together. And now I like to point out, because Gil Kane likes to do the below shot from behind of the guys. If this was a woman, everyone would be flipping out, right? But when we see Gil Kane do this, and you say, "Oh, sexism, why do they have to kick high and do this stuff?" And the guys would just like turn the page. We just turn the page. So they're a good team. I think Superboy, well, the other Superboy used to help teach Superboy stuff from his other vantage point. But we get another nice set of fight scenes in action from these two going out there, and let's see. It was just the thing is just all out action, right? But at the same time, we have Satanus on his last thing. He's going to try to take them out the last time. But at the same time, the two of them are finally merging back together, thankfully. Finally, you said it would happen.
What right? Satanis in the issue was that he was trying to kill Superman with the magic after the two of... Superman was...
You're going to give it away? Give it away. All right, go to it.
Yeah, I mean, what? You guys didn't come here because you want to read it. Anyway, so Superman was resisting Satanis. He wasn't able to fully control him, so he released him. And then he's like, "Well, I got enough magic. I can just kill the both of you guys because you're separated and you're weaker." So what he does inadvertently was somehow the energy creates this malevolent, evil, magical Superman. And he's like, "Uh-oh, I wasn't expecting that to happen." So then he's got to get rid of that. But in getting rid of that magical energy rejoins the two Supermen. And so now he's got to fight. Now he's got to fight the real deal. And we're in what is it? As we like to say, we're in the end game.
We're in the end game. And this is Superman says, Satanus old foe is not that old. This is about to end. He's joined back, and it's pretty even, but he's like, what's the name? He's tired, but he's still strong, right? So we get this. I just kind of wish we had, but the action is all there, right? Well, Superman gets felded again, all right? Oh no, so nope, it's not over. And Superman, we're not going to know what happens at this point until after this. But Satanus is there, and the dark bolts are going through him with like, what's happened? Why won't you die? And Superman looks like he finished him forever. He said, but Superman doesn't respond. Instead, he simply acts. And kablamo. I think it worked. The punch was hard enough to push himself back in time. And we find out that Superman kind of, while he was with him, put some spells in there so he couldn't do stuff against them. And we got Superman back. He beat Satanus. So it's a little long, and Clark Kent comes back. He's 100%. And see, this is the start of the romance of Lana and Clark Kent, right? We're not getting to the next issue, but the stuff between Super, I think they said it in what's that thing? Was it Direct Currents? What was that? It's DC Sampler. They had the little picture where they showed you Lana and Clark, and Superman and Lois breaking up. The next issue is a little tougher for Lois and Superman, but this is the start of this relationship. But Superman, of course, gets busy all the time, so how much relationship can you have? So, but
well, they were trying to do. I mean, they were really trying to do a different take on the overall triangle, and you know, you have adding Lana Lang to the mix. A lot of people forget there was the if we it out of continuity, but the original triangle would have been Lana Lang, Superboy, and Clark Kent.
Mm-hmm.
So now bring Lana Lang there. You've got Superman, Clark Kent, Lana Lang, and Lois Lane. So now you've got Lana Lang coming back, but she's like, no, she's interested in Clark as opposed to being interested in Superman. And then Superman and Lois seems to be on the out. But the whole idea was that they wanted to work it so that it was going to be Lois and Superman and Lana and Clark, and see how well, you know, that would actually get managed. And that would be, well, not even a triangle, but a quadrangle of of story ideas, if you will. That was, I think, going to be the ultimate goal of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, and again, the dynamic with Lana was that Lana, you know, grew up with, I mean, if you had the Superboy stuff, she was, I mean, she was pretty much like a, you know, redheaded Lois Lane, if you will. She was always trying to like prove that he was Superboy or what have you.
Yeah.
But with Clark, you know, so you could say that that was her as a young girl. But when she comes there, she knows Clark, and there's no problem with her, you know, wanting a relationship with Clark, who's just just a normal guy for her, and she can see him for what he is. That's not a big deal. Whereas, you know, Lois Lane, Superman's usually the object of her affection. So that's what they were going for at the end of it. But of course, you got to read further for that. But what can I say? This was action packed, Pee Wee.